and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Banjo.
And I'm Junglist. We make no bones about it. On this show, we love video games.
Well, the good ones anyway.
The range of subjects that get the video game treatment gets wider and wider, and this week we're at the opposite ends of the spectrum.
The Lost and Damned is the first downloadable content for Grand Theft Auto 4. It's extremely violent, extremely vulgar, and extremely Xbox 360 exclusive.
On the other side of things, we have Flower. It's extremely gentle, extremely calming, and extremely innovative.
And somewhere in the middle, we have the sequel to the Aussie-developed puzzle quest, Galactrix lands on a platform near you. Space Pirates, Junk, Space Pirates!
Plus, a look at how all you retro fans should be taking care of your old consoles and games to preserve them at their playing best.
But first, can you guess the game for this week?
News time, Petal.
Good game.
Independent games developer Chris Pelling has pledged to donate half of the proceeds from the sale of his game Mayhem Intergalactic to the Victorian Bushfire Appeal until mid-March. Mayhem Intergalactic is a strategy game that has won two 2008 Atom Awards for Best Video Game and Best Tertiary Video Game. Chris is from Canberra, and his own suburb was threatened by the 2003 fires, which killed 4 people and destroyed over 500 homes. And he says his experience, whilst not of the same magnitude as the Victorian fires, inspired him to want to help. Age of Empires creators Ensemble Studios may have been shut down by Microsoft in the past month, but 2 new studios have already been formed by the veteran developers' former staff. Robot Entertainment is the name of the first studio. The new company was formed by Ensemble's former head honcho Tony Goodman and will be handling the support services for both Halo Wars and the Age of Empires series, as well as working on new games into the future. The second company is called Bonfire Studios and was formed by as many as 35 former Ensemble staff. Although Bonfire are yet to announce what they're presently working on, they have promised that they'll reveal a new IP in the next few months. Game designer Masahiro Sakurai has in the past month been given his own development studio by Nintendo. Sakurai is best known as the creator of Nintendo's most famous pink puffball, Kirby, as well as being the creative force behind the Super Smash Bros. Series. The new studio will be called Project Sora, and they are already reported to be working on a brand new IP.
Hey, we should do this again sometime.
Good game.
Infinite Interactive, Melbourne's little studio that could, are best known for Puzzle Quest, an RPG remix of Bejeweled. Now they're back on the scene, and their latest puzzler bears a resemblance to Hexit, the 360's free arcade game designed by Tetris maker Alexei Pajitnov. But it's almost an unfair comparison, as Puzzle Quest Galactrix is almost all around better.
Set in space. The board is now hexagonal and your pieces as well, and the aim is to move them into a straight line with bonuses for 4, 5 or more of a kind. Gems give you different types of energy which you can then use for special abilities.
Each ship has shields, which can be raised by matching up blue gems, and hull points, which don't go back up until later when you can repair yourself.
Enemy shields destroyed.
It takes a while to get the hang of the way the gems move and also the patterns you can make, but even early on you can tell there's enough here for a sequel, it's not just Puzzle Quest in space.
You'll still be denying your opponent certain gems, avoiding bad setups, and planning cascades with one astronomical twist. Gems will fall in the same direction that you move a gem. It adds a whole new level.
And this gets rid of the balance problems that plagued the original Puzzle Quest, because here, everything is available to everyone. Experienced gems are just as useless as the first though, and some of the side puzzles like hacking and mining just aren't as much fun. And also the supernova ability, which happens if you get a whole bunch of cascades in a row, can actually be a bit overpowered and take out your enemy in one turn.
Shield destroyed.
That kind of had me worried, Badge, that the game might be a bit shallow, like maybe they thought the hexagonal stuff was already too much and they had to keep the rest of the game simple. But as you play on, the actual items that you can stick on your ship get more inventive than Puzzle Quest, like the anti-gravity machine that can affect which direction gems will fall. We reviewed Galactrix on the PC, and we also had time to check out the DS version, which doesn't have much of a tutorial, so we'd recommend just getting online to check out the rules. If you haven't played Puzzle Quest, you're going to enjoy it. If you have played Puzzle Quest, you're going to enjoy it and still find it refreshing. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It's great in single player or multiplayer, and it will appeal to casual and hardcore gamers. I didn't dig the music as much in this one, Jung, but I still loved it. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game! This week's great gaming moment goes to the king hit track at the end of the Guitar Hero 3 set list, Dragon Force's Through the Fire and the Flames. After playing through the entire set list and unlocking every track in the game, things got a little more hardcore. The French thrash metal band's 8 minutes of furious fretwork might have been a bit more than most people were bargaining for. Good thing then that as a reward for beating the game, you could shred away without a rock meter, making this a great moment in gaming. Good game!
Last year, you, Screen Australia, the ABC, and Galactrix developers built the Good Game game Office Wars, which is still available for download from our site, by the way.
Now there's a new initiative, this time to develop a serious game.
A serious game is a computer or video game designed primarily for a purpose other than just keeping you entertained. It could be a game that educates you about an important social issue, such as hunger and poverty in the third world, just like the World Food Programme's Food Force.
It could be a therapeutic game designed to make sick kids feel better, like Hope Lab's Remission.
It could be a training simulation that teaches safe work practices, like the locally made Heroes of Industry.
Or it could even be a game designed to encourage you to join the military, like the Australian Defence Force's Secure the Deck. Or it could be a game that teaches you about the effects of mushrooms on plumbers, right? What?
Anyway, the ABC and Screen Australia are putting the call out for ideas for a new serious game.
So if you think you have what it takes to make the next Remission or Food Force, hit up the Serious Games Initiative website. Entries close towards the end of April. Good game!
We've got plenty of libraries and archives for our books and films, but where do you go to play an original game of Donkey Kong? We've been playing games for decades now, but is anyone preserving our gaming history? And does it matter?
If you think back to the time when people were first playing their first game of Space Invaders or Pong or whatever it is, you know, people, they were astounded by what it felt like to have this interaction with the screen. Internationally, there are a number of repositories that are held, and also a number of specific purpose-built video game museums, such as the Berlin Computer Games Museum. In Australia, there's no institution actually is taking responsibility at the moment for collecting games. And of course, if there aren't collections, then nobody's doing any preservation work.
Unlike regular museum exhibits, video game exhibitions rely almost exclusively on those passionate gamers out there ready to donate their collections in order to preserve their history.
Not everybody's been hesitant to collect and preserve games, of course, and I have a lot of respect for individual private home collectors. They are the unofficial archivists, if you like, of digital game history.
How many games do you think you actually have?
I've never attempted to count, but when I was kind of laying stuff out, I was trying to do an estimate just based on like one shelf holds this many, and I reckon there might be maybe 1,500 or something like that. I think just seeing that original history is important. I guess it's like, you know, getting the first printing of a book or something, you know, there's just something valuable in that, I think.
There are, however, some problems with everything being left in the hands of people who don't have the resources to undertake preservation in a detailed and serious way. When there are a lot of dispersed preservation activities, you're not getting the continuity and a consistency necessarily that you would get if you have major cultural institutions coming in and doing things in ways that are world's best practice.
I'm taking the Good Game console collection to get some advice on how best to look after it. G'day.
Oh, how you going?
Hi, I'm Badger.
Well, it's Dave Rockell.
I need some help.
You do?
So what can we do at home to look after our games and consoles? What tips can you give me?
My very quick recommendation to you would be go out and buy a box just like the one that you've brought the stuff in. Go and get yourself a quality cleaning product from any supermarket. Start off with gloves or clean hands. Very simply clean and wipe away any excess.
So I got a bit of Coke on that one, I think.
Yes. And then just simply store them into either a Ziploc bag or a freezer bags are even better.
So we've got to keep dust out of it, we've got to keep it sealed, and how important is temperature? Is that going to affect the degrading of this sort of stuff?
It is. Ideally, you should keep them at a lower temperature. Of course, that's not easy to do at home, so my recommendation would be they're packaged into freezer bags, for instance. They're neatly stacked back into your plastic tub. You close the lid to keep them dust-free, and you slip them into a cool, dark cupboard.
So is this a really bad thing, having all these cables like this?
That's terrible. If we can look at some that's come up from our collection, you'll see that their coils are all they're coiled and they're attached with a cotton tape, and it's all kept nice and neat. They can be placed into a plastic bag, put into your tub, so all the components from your game are kept complete.
So what are the challenges in preserving this kind of technology?
I think for us, for example, this morning we had a quick look at these the cartridges for this game, and this is dead technology. Unless the console is an operational console that we can plug into a monitor or a television, there's no way we can ever play or view this, the contents of these discs or cassettes ever again. And it is an absolute nightmare worldwide.
You've inspired me, your cleanliness and attention to detail here. I'm going to take all of these back to the studio, I'm going to clean them, I'm going to wrap them, and I'm going to try and untangle this poor Hanamix Pong unit, which has decided to have some fun with the Power Glove. The State Library of Victoria has a brief to document Victoria's heritage, and games are a part of that.
The games history that we have right now only stretches back as far as about 5 years ago. But it's our intent to keep collecting games well on into the future. The technical aspects of that are that we've got hardware issues, so we've got the consoles, and we've got software issues, like the games themselves. They're inherently fragile. If you were to transfer yourself in a time capsule 20 years from now, it's really difficult to know how these games will last and whether or not they're playable on the technology of the day. No one in Australia is actually doing something real in the world of preservation. So there's a possibility that these games, they'll be lost for the future generations.
There's been a sense in which games have fallen between the cracks of the existing institutions, and we're really looking for a new era, I think, at the moment. And there is a building momentum there for somebody to actually step forward and take responsibility for collecting these, what is really unique digital cultural heritage.
Looking for reliable family security in these turbulent times? Then you require the Wagglemax Family Nuclear Apocalypse Fun Bunker. With the threats of the atomic bomb, nerve gas, and the women's rights, you can't afford not to lock your loved ones under the ground. But you may be thinking, why choose Wagglemax Fun Bunkers? Why not one of our clearly inferior competitors' plagiarized, court case pending products? For foolish mortal, Wagglemax utilized the most advanced materials from all across the globe. Impenetrable blast doors from the Americas, reinforced papier-mâché walls from France, modern bathroom facilities from the dark planet Zergon, and completely unique wrist-mounted desk clock and personal organizer, the Pig Boy. And don't forget, when the bomb does drop, you will be administered bonus limbs for no extra charge. The perfect symbol of the modern go-getter and completely unrelated to acute radiation poisoning. Wagglemax Fun Bunkers, putting you underground.
Good game.
There's a lot of video game genres, fighting games, adventure games, racing games, but there's definitely not a wind genre. That is, until now.
What are you talking about, Badge?
Jung, I'm talking about flowers.
For me? Flower, from the makers of Flow, is a PlayStation Network game that allows you to be the wind and spread the love.
Flower takes you on a journey into fields where you'll pollinate barren lands, activate wind farms, and rejuvenate the world. It takes many elements that made Flow such an interesting experience, like audio triggers and the progressive nature of the gameplay.
With barely any controls or tutorial, Flower is communicating with you from the moment you pick up the controller. Badge, did you like it as much as their last game, Flow?
Not even close, Jung. You know, with Flow you had this predatory joy of eating other organisms that are smaller than you, and you really felt like you were attached to the experience because of the interactive music. But here I didn't have that same feeling of control and attachment, and the 6-axis controller just felt sluggish to me.
Are you saying you didn't find being a pedal bumbling in the breeze relaxing?
Jung, I find RPGs and MMOs relaxing, but here every time a new area opened up I just felt like it was another chore. Didn't you feel the same?
Not really. I think it cleverly guides you along a path, and the way always seems clear. If you ever stray from the path, it'll gently nudge you in the right direction. Interacting with the flowers and the petals may seem random, but each movement is handcrafted and it's a pleasure to control.
When danger is added and you become a more powerful force in the world, you really get a sense that you're actually accomplishing something, especially as you smash through barriers and colour the world behind you as you rush along the road.
Maybe it's sad that we've evolved to a point where we'd rather look at a nice meadow on a screen rather than just walk outside. But for me, I guess it's the visual reward, seeing these barren patches changed into lush, rich colors that get more complex as you go along, all of which is complemented by calming music, some of which is interactive.
Maybe I just don't get what's being fun about being the wind, Jung. I realise it's a small game that's trying to experiment, but for me, when it comes down to it, I play a game for fun and to be entertained, not to watch the grass grow. And keep in mind, Flower is very much open to interpretation. It's just that my interpretation is 4 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, I see your point. If I had any criticism, it's that it's too short. It's only 1 to 1.5 hours. But I think the main point is it's challenging our idea of what a game should be. They could have easily ruined it with some cheesy story, but they chose to leave it unexplained, both narratively and practically. There's something pure about that, and the very fact that we're arguing about the game's legitimacy is something. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens. And how about those bloom effects?
Didn't really blow me away, Jung.
Only I get to pun!
When we look back at video game history, we usually only focus on the hero and often forget about how important the supporting cast of characters are. One such supporting cast member is the companion, an ever-present follower who accompanies you on your quest and maybe even does a few menial tasks along the way.
Here's the Danish and coffee you asked for, Badger.
Thank you.
Well, the earliest game that I can think of that had a companion in it was this. It's called NetHack, and it's a role-playing game first authored in the mid-'80s. Depending on what character class you chose, you'd start the game with either a dog, a cat, or a saddled pony. And not only would these pets be your closest companion throughout many a dungeon crawl, but they'd also help you in combat. Because NetHack was drawn completely with text symbols, you had to use your imagination to see that a lowercase d was man's best friend. But for many players, this companion was the original and the best.
There's no sugar in this, is there?
All right, give it back.
Continuing the cute doggy theme, Sega used a pound puppy to add bite to Shadow Dancer, a spin-off from the massively popular and successful series Shinobi. Your canine companion's name was Yamato, and he liked the taste of bad guys. In fact, he liked the taste so much that he'd happily bound over obstacles just to sink his teeth into them. Gaming companions didn't just come with 4 legs either. This next one, for example, didn't have any legs at all. A Boy and His Blob was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1989, and, as its title suggests, it featured an amorphous globule as its companion. Blobby would follow you around the game's levels, and you'd have to feed him jelly beans to get him to do things for you, with different flavours producing different abilities. Speaking of different flavours,
The third game in the Mega Man series would also bring with it a companion, and although it was a dog once again, this time at least it was a robo-dog. Rush was the Pooch's name, and his robotic companion powers could help Mega Man fly, bounce him up to higher levels, or even transform into a submarine to help him travel underwater.
too much sugar. Mario may have already had a sidekick in his brother Luigi, but it would take until 1990 for him to get an in-game companion. That companion was Yoshi. Super Mario World introduced us to the little green dinosaur, who would not only carry Mario on his back, but also had a 2-foot-long tongue that ensured he could give any Goomba or Koopa a thorough licking. A few years later, and Sonic the Hedgehog was getting on the companion bandwagon with his own sidekick. That companion was Tails the Fox, and he debuted in Sonic 2 in 1992. He was almost as fast as Sonic, and he could even fly thanks to his helicopter-like tails, although he would usually just follow Sonic around without doing too much to help him.
Kind of like getting him a coffee in Danish, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, a bit closer to the present day, and we have a resurgence of companion-filled games. Tag team heroes like Banjo and Kazooie, Jak and Daxter, and Ratchet and Clank have managed to make pint-sized companions who ride on your back a prerequisite for the platforming genre.
Companions also made a huge impact on us in the 2001 game Eco, where we had to lead a vulnerable princess named Yorda by the hand while keeping her safe from the forces of darkness.
And then there is, of course, Fable 2's Pooch, one companion that you can't really help but fall in love with.
Speaking of lovable, who could forget the companion cube from Portal?
Please escort your companion cube to the Aperture Science Emergency Intelligence Incinerator.
Your time with us was short, but oh so sweet.
So, Badger, we can't mention them all, but what's been your favorite companion from the history of gaming?
For me, Jung, I think the best companions to gaming are a not too sweet, not too bitter cup of coffee, and a good Danish. What do you think, Jung?
I think that particular Danish was a really good companion with the trash can that I found it in. But personally, I can't go past Navi the Fairy from my favorite game ever, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. So, whether it's an inanimate cube, a slobbering hound, or a flying fairy, companions are long overdue to be recognized alongside our better-known video game heroes.
You're a really bad companion.
I know.
Good game.
When a developer puts on their promise hat, rumors of glorious downloadable content are the first thing you usually hear. And this can range from a whole nother chapter in the game, such as in Killzone Liberation, or a discount in vending machines, as in BioShock.
Now it's Rockstar's turn with 360 exclusive content titled The Lost and Damned. If you like bikers, or bikes, or GTA 4, this is right up your alley, but the first thing to do is turn the Silent Hill filter off.
Yeah, Jung, GTA 4 is such a beautiful game anyway. The effect just makes it seem low-res instead of the original intended hardcore. You play as Johnny K, vice president of the Lost Gang, and he's a bit unhappy taking second place now that Billy, the gang's leader, is out of jail.
Your biker buddies aren't very likable, and even though it's fun running amok with them at times, pretty soon you'll want to ditch that bike and find a sports car, go for a cruise, simply to get away from their whinging.
The motion capture and voice acting is great, but the dialogue is often stilted.
You told me you don't tell me shit, you little.
And in fact, they've jammed so much vulgarity in here. It makes the characters seem two-dimensional or seem to have split personalities at times. Not even bikers need to swear this much, Jung.
Yeah, I agree, Badge. I mean, GTA 4 was pretty full-on, but this is ridiculous, you know? To me, it's like a child's attempt to make an adult game. And even though some of the voice acting is all right, the writing is just dumb and... Also, like the PC version of GTA 4 that came out not too long ago, this downloadable content is uncensored, so prepare yourself for drug use, unlocked cameras, and full frontal nudity.
Trust me,
There's some new stuff. There's new guns, a couple of new mini games, but beware the arm wrestling. It requires Beijing Olympics 2008-like stick waggling. And Jung, I've met 3 people now who've had busted controllers from waggling their sticks too much. And you've got to be careful with those 360 ones. They already have a 3-month warranty.
Let it go, Badge. Let it go.
Never!
Stick waggling aside, what we liked most in this downloadable content is the multiplayer, and we wanted to test the modes out fully before tackling this review.
Races now let you use a baseball bat on a motorcycle, and you can also reset by holding Y, which comes in handy if you accidentally drive into the subway. There's a few tweaks to match finding as well.
Witness protection sees one side defending an armored bus with a state witness inside, and the other side armed to the teeth trying to take out the bus.
And this works best when the defending side all work together and set up roadblocks, and when the offensive side try to flank the bus. But if you really want to get the adrenaline pumping, chopper versus chopper is the way to go, which sees a hardened chopper versus a bike.
It's great fun, but if you fly as bad as Badger, you probably don't have anything to worry about.
That's true, Jung. There's no handbrake on that thing. But by and large, the best mode is definitely Lone Wolf Biker, which is kind of reverse tag where you're it and everybody's after you, and then whoever kills you becomes it.
This leads to some pretty crazy moments when a whole gang turns around on you in the middle of a firefight.
So it's a bit of a downer that PS3 owners won't be able to play this downloadable content, especially because the franchise really made its mark on the PS2. But it's just good to have more GTA 4, so we can QQ or we can pew pew. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
At first, Badge, I was feeling a bit of the old GTA 4 grind, especially in the early missions when I was forced to use the bike. But the checkpoints are a lot better placed in this downloadable content, so it shows that Rockstar are listening to their community. I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
So did you guess the game for this week?
It was Chuck Rock, a caveman-themed platform game made by British game developer Core Design for the Amiga computer in 1991.
It featured a borderline obese troglodyte with appalling personal hygiene and whose vocabulary was limited to 2 words, unga and bunga. Remind you of anyone, Jung?
No, but this does. Using your bloated beer gut, you had to belly bounce your way through a Stone Age setting filled with prehistoric predators, all to reclaim your kidnapped wife from an evil Tyrannosaurus. Next week, we get our hands on Empire Total War, the latest in the historically accurate Aussie-developed strategy series that's gone colonial.
And Tom Clancy takes to the skies in an attempt to refresh an old genre with Hawks.
Overclocking is the science of maxing out computer hardware so it runs as fast as possible. And like most sports, Aussies punch above their weight in the competitive scene. Ray goes along to see Australians battling for a spot in the World Championships. There's heaps of extra stuff on our website that we can't fit into this show, so check it out, including an interview with the Killzone 2 developers.
Until next week, gamers, Barjo out.
Junglist out.